youtube.com/Geek Aloud. It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. and it's only 2 months late, but here we are with episode 74. Bully, you've joined us in the second slot this evening. How are you, mate?
Good. We've bumped up the out, and I think normally we say it's 8 p.m.-ish. Well, it's 8 p.m.-ish, but a couple of months late, but never mind. We're back into it, and let's get ripping.
Indeed. And
it's 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. somewhere.
It always is. Joining us in that third slot is Ace. How you doing, my friend?
Glad to be back, and glad to be back for the first inaugural 2-month, what would we call this, anniversary?
Sure,
thanks for having me.
It's the makeup episode, I think. I shall explain at the top of the show how this will run for everybody. We start off with games, interrogation, and deliberation. It is what do we got? 7 games we've been playing this week, in the last couple of months. We'll cover all those for you. And then we jump into the newsroom. Now, Unky Dunky has been winding them up for us. And I can tell you there's 5 stories this evening, 5 news stories. After that, then, it's everyone's favorite segment, the Standoff. Bully, can you tell me things, please, about the returning Standoff?
Oh, I can tell you about the Standoff. So we've got time flies when you're having fun. So what game made 10 hours feel like 1? So basically what game do you lose track of time in? And we've got a decent list going there, so make sure you stick around till the end for that one.
Indeed. And then it's audience integration segment 4. As you are joining us in the live stream, feel free to chat away. Bully, if you're happy to patrol that YouTube chat, mate, you can flick up any comments as they come through. How does that sound?
I am. And hello to Eric Tate, just jumped in. So welcome back, Eric.
Eric Tate, welcome back, sir. Good of you to be straight back on the ball with this one. That's fantastic. All right, then, without further ado, games, interrogation, and deliberation. Oh, look at that. The buttons even work now. And game 1 this evening is Final Fantasy 16. I have not gone hands-on at all, so I'm just going to hand this straight over to Bully for your thoughts, my friend, on Final Fantasy 16.
Well, I might have had a little bit of hands-on. I think I've just hit 60 hours, and main progress on the game is 90%. So I'm just wrapping up all the side quests and little hunts that you've got available to you through the game before I power through and finish off the story. But it's funny because I think there's been people in 2 different camps. I've really enjoyed it. I think graphically it's a powerhouse of a game. It looks amazing, especially some of the boss battles that you end up getting into, and you can see some of them just popping up on the screen there, but certainly look amazing. When you're playing them, there's been a little bit of criticism that it's been a bit button mashy. So one of the game designers that designed Devil May Cry has done the combat for it, and you can see that coming across in the actual gameplay itself. But I don't personally see that it's button mashing, because you've really only got one attack button, and that's square on the PS5. But what you can then do is use your right trigger and left trigger to cycle through various magic attacks and special attacks and that sort of stuff. And once you sort of start to get into the flow of it, the combat also has this thing where you can stagger enemies, and when they're staggered, you can do a lot more damage to them. So by working out what your best attack method is to get as many of those special attacks in when they're staggered, along with some other moves that you can do, it actually, in my opinion, has a fair amount of thought process into how you're doing it. By all means, you could just sit there and button mash and you'd probably get your way through it. But to actually work through and take fair chunks of health off some of the enemies, which is what you need to do with some of the bigger enemies and the bosses, certainly. It does have a bit of gameplay into it there, and a lot more of an element. It is a departure. It's from your traditional Final Fantasy turn-based sort of stuff, but we saw that with Final Fantasy VII Remake as well. So it shouldn't be surprising that they've sort of gone down this route. The gameplay itself, like, I've really enjoyed most of it. The side quests, and I just mentioned before, I was sort of going through and mopping up some of those. That's probably the one criticism of it, is a lot of the side quests just feel very almost MMO type side quests. And again, it's not surprising, because some of the team that worked on the game had a fair bit to do with Final Fantasy 14, which is the MMO game for Final Fantasy, and it's very much in the mold. Some of those side quests of that, they're not overly interesting, and what you can find yourself doing is you'll go and speak to one character. He'll give you the start of the quest. Then you literally walk 5 paces, speak to another character. Then you'll go to a different area, pick up a piece of dirt or a flower or something like that, and then you come back to where you got the quest from, and you might speak to 3 or 4 different people, and then again you go, okay, now the quest's done, and there's not a lot of interest in it. But you've really got to persist with it. That's the only issue, because by persisting with some of those side quests, it unlocks materials that you can then craft better weapons with, and it also expands. And as I'm getting towards the end of it, without spoiling anything, it starts to wrap up a lot of the characters, their arcs and their motives and the story behind them. So you sort of really, to get the full experience, you do need to do and persist with the side quests, even though there's some that are, as I said, probably a little bit boring in and of itself, but it does end up coming round and providing a bit more of padding to the story itself. And in relation to that, without going to the spoilers, it's quite funny because there'd been a lot of talk that was very much like a Game of Thrones style story with different factions and houses, and very political, and how they were sort of interacting with each other and fighting against each other, or working or double crossing and all that sort of stuff. But that's probably the first half of the game, and then it develops again from that, and then it moves on to almost a second act in a different part of the story. So, and it's completely different to the first half of the story. So there's quite a bit involved in it. There has been the odd occasion when I've sort of been sitting there and watching some of the cutscenes that you sort of go, oh, who is that again? Because as I said, 60 hours in, you sort of lose track with some of the characters. But it does have this amazing feature that at any time, and it doesn't have to be during a cutscene, while you're wandering in the world or whatever it is, there's an active time law thing. So what you can do is you pause it and you push the touchpad on the PS5 controller, and whatever's on the screen at the time, it will then bring up little icons that you can click on that will then expand the lore of whatever's on the screen at the time. So you might be talking to a character that you can't remember where you've run into him in the past.
Yep.
You do the active time lore, you click on the icon, it'll show you his background, what faction he's from, what involvement he's had in the story so far, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're in an area that you want to know a bit more about, you can read a bit more about the area or the enemies, and it really expands the lore on it as well. So if you find yourself sort of struggling of keeping up who's who and what's going on, it's a really good catch-up thing, especially, as I said, 60 hours I'm in and another 10 or 15% to go in the game. But if you were to put it down for a couple of weeks and come back, you'd be fairly lost. And this is a great way of catching you up with what was going on and how it was all working. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan anyway, and I think...
Can I jump in with one question while I think of it? Just on
Sure.
that sort of Wikipedia type feature you were describing, is there any way to get it to... Can I hit the trackpad and say, yeah, tell me about it, and then dismiss it so I can keep running around in the world and have it read it to me?
No, it's almost like that Wikipedia thing. So it's you sort of pause it, read through the lore, and then move on. But they're not massive, big diatribes, so it's not like you're going to be sitting there for 5 minutes going, oh, what's going on? It literally just gives you the dot points about the character,
right.
What his involvement's been in the story so far, and a little bit about his background. It'll take you 30 or 40 seconds to read through it and just to catch up on it.
I'm with you. That does sound cool.
Which I thought was a really interesting part of the game. And I suppose the only other thing which I've seen, and I don't necessarily agree with it, there's been a bit of criticism that it's not a Final Fantasy game. I
saw it on the splash screen. It said it right there, Final Fantasy 16.
I can confirm that. I read Final Fantasy as well.
Yeah, well, I've seen the splash screen plenty of times when I load it up. I think what people are getting at is it's not a traditional. The way the game's structured and the way you progress probably isn't what would be, I guess, a traditional Final Fantasy game. But the only thing I'll say to that is that no Final Fantasy game is the exact same or a follow-on, except for the direct sequel. So there's Final Fantasy 13 and 13.2 and 10 and 10.2. But apart from those, like 5 is different to 6, is different to 7, is different to 8, and so on, with different battle systems, different upgrading skills, different mechanics and all the rest of it. So I don't really understand how you can make that comparison that it's that it's not a Final Fantasy game. The only thing that I will concede on it is that the RPG elements aren't massively in depth, and that's probably one of the things I would have liked to see a bit more. Is a bit more either weapons in the world that you could get or craft. There is quite a few, but you sort of start tending, once you start getting into it, you're only really touching on some of the higher end things, and they don't come along too often. And the points allocation, while it's there, it's not as deep as what you would have found in a lot of other Final Fantasy games. But to be fair, they're only little minor criticisms. I've really enjoyed my time with it.
Could they address some of those concerns that it's not, Final Fantasy enough? What if they turned up the encumbrance number? So, you were constantly having to manage your inventory. Would that make it funner? Final Fantasy?
Isn't that a Bethesda thing?
That's more, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen an encumbrance thing in a Final Fantasy game. But I guess what I'm sort of getting at is most Final Fantasy games, if you go into a new area and you fight through a dungeon or you get to a boss, you normally get some decent weapon or item at the end of it. Whereas you don't necessarily get that here. You might get some. You might defeat a boss and get some components that will then let you craft a weapon down the track. But you don't necessarily get a weapon. You'd have to go back to your sort of home base and go to the blacksmith and have him craft it for you. So there's a little bit of that in it. But as I said, they're very minor things. And for mine, I'd say it's probably... it's probably one of the best Final Fantasy games, if not the best one that I've played. Certainly top 3. And in terms of games for this year, I'd put it up there with the experience I've had with it is probably up there with Breath of the Wild. Sorry, not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom for me. Slightly different games, I understand that, but it'd be up there with close to being Game of the Year at the moment for me.
That's high praise. Can I ask you, mate, you said you're 60 hours in. Do you have a feeling for how far off you are from the end?
Yeah, well, if you go, I'm not sure if you've seen it, on the front screen of the PS5, on the game card, if you scroll down and it shows you the hours you've played, it also shows you a percentage of the main quest as well.
Oh, is that the main quest? I never knew what drove the percentage. I've seen that number, but didn't realize it was main quest related.
Yeah, so that's my understanding. It's the main quest or the main story. So any of the side stuff won't contribute to that. It's just the main part of it. So it's sitting at 90% at the moment. So I'd suggest I've probably got another from where the story sits. I think I'm almost up to the conclusion part, and just as I said before, just cleaning up some of those side quests and hunts that you've got as well. So you can be given these hunts to go out and find like high level enemies and that sort of stuff, which again will give you some components to craft. But I've only got a couple of those. I think I've got 2 out of the 15 odd, 20 odd hunts left, and I've got 1 side quest left, and then I'll pump it back into the main story. So, sitting at 90%, I'd say 5-ish hours to go, I guess, 4 or 5 hours.
And is this top of your list? You're sort of headlong into it and no looking back till you're done?
Oh, this is pretty much all I've played for the last month, barring jumping into a couple of other games for an hour or 2 at a time just to sort of break it up a little bit, but it's been pretty consistent for the last month.
That's awesome, man. Are you going for the platinum?
No, and this is one of the other criticisms is I would quite happily put the time and the effort in. The problem is, to get the platinum, you have to play through the whole game twice. So yeah, I think from what I've read is without doing all the side quests and the optional stuff, if you just power through the story on the second playthrough, you could get it done in about 25 to 30 hours.
Is that a New Game Plus, I assume?
Essentially, yeah. So it's New Game Plus, plus it also it's a higher tier difficulty as well.
Oh, so you couldn't go the New Game Plus and then back it off to easy and mow it down in far less hours sort of thing?
No. You've got to do it on what they call a Final Fantasy mode. So it ups the level on everything. You keep all your equipment and your skills and all that when you start the new game, but you're up against harder enemies. So I'm not sure. Like, it might be something, I'll go back to in a year or 2, but certainly I'm not going to power through doing 65, 70 hours and then double back on it straight away and put another 25, 30 hours in just to punch through the story again and get get the platinum, I don't think.
If this is all you've been playing for the past bit, man, I expect you might be ready to move on once it's rolled anyway.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, I think.
Can I ask then, and I know we're moving on shortly, but what is the next game? Is it the next game? Are you Diablo 4 bound next?
I have put a little bit of time into Diablo 4, probably about 10 hours. So not a whole heap, but I've put a bit of time into that. I've got, where's the backlog sitting at the moment? I think of the Trails of Steel series had just got released. Basically, the final game that wraps up a 6 or 7 game series.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never played any of them, so I actually picked up 1 and 2 for fairly cheap during the week. So I'm almost on a bit of an RPG kick at the moment. So
Nice.
I might have a look at those, or I might just jump back in and clear some of the backlog. The other one I've got coming out, which I'm not sure will be on the upcoming game releases. There was a new Mickey Mouse game coming out at the end of the month on the Switch, which is a Metroidvania type game that I was actually keen to get into and have a look at that one as well. So that might be next.
Nice one. Well, we're looking at Final Fantasy 16. Ace, can I get your temperature, mate? Are you keen for this one, or are you not a Final Fantasy guy? Where are you sitting?
Oh, man, I love the game style. I love the process. But from like speaking to you, Bully, like it's there's just a lot of content, a lot of hours, and you're putting in a lot of time, and for not a lot of reward. And I'm not even too sure how coherent each version of Final Fantasy is as it moves through. But
yeah. So that's one of the things with it, which is probably pretty good. So there's 16 obviously mainline games, but you don't have to have played any of them. It's not a continuation story. There's not. You won't miss playing this game. You won't miss. With some games, even though they don't have the same story and it doesn't follow on, you miss sort of character tropes or you miss little in jokes and stuff like that. There's none of that in a Final Fantasy game. They're independent, each game in and of themselves. You don't have to have played any of the others. The only thing you will do, some of the magic and stuff does transfer across games, but it's on the mind or anything. It's not like you're going to sit there and go, I don't understand what this spell is or what this summon is. Because I haven't played any of the others, it's more just a bit of a touchstone to go, oh yeah, that summon has been in this game, but it doesn't impact playing the new one. So you could effectively play it and have, as I said, there wouldn't be an issue with you not understanding or not following anything.
I've got Tears of the Kingdom sitting there in the backlog and Jedi Survivor, so I don't know. From what I'm hearing with Tears of the Kingdom, might be a trump card to this. But look, I'm interested. It does tweak me, but I think this game's almost marketed to people sort of maybe who have older children or sort of have a little bit more spare time, free time. I know you work a bit of night shift, so you sort of have unequal time. You might be coming home late and you can play from 12 till 4 sort of stuff. For me, like at the moment, I'm scrounging. If I can get 2 or 3 hours here and there and I can punch out a bit of stuff, then that's sort of where I put a lot of my eggs.
Yeah, and I suppose that's probably the only one thing I will say, because it is by far the longest Final Fantasy game if you take out the MMO, by a fair margin, probably about 30 or 40% longer than any of the previous ones. So a lot of the previous ones are sort of 30, 40 hour mark is where you'd hit. And to be honest, if they had have made it that sort of length, I think it would be a bit more accessible, and it probably would have tightened the story a little bit. Even though the story is really good in my opinion, there's a few areas they could have tightened up, and if they had reduced it by 10 or 15 hours, I reckon that would have been the perfect length for it. But I get what you're saying. To see the whole thing through, which in my opinion you need to do. Once you start the story, you get engrossed in it, and you need to see it through.
Yeah, you got to lock it down. And,
you've got to put a lot of time into it.
Perfect. All right, then. Speaking of games you've got to put a lot of time into, next up, Diablo 4. Now, this is my character here off the top. You can see me 35 World Tier 2, but Ace, over to you, and this is your guy, man.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of experimenting. I've tried 3 characters. I tried the Druid, I tried the Barbarian, and I'm back on the Sorcerer, or on the Sorcerer now. And basically, it's been enjoyable. Out of all 3 characters, this has been by far the easiest playthrough. I find they're just an absolute damage tank. Once you get sort of into your system of what you're going to use and how you're going to use it. Now, the build that I've followed here is the Arclash build, which Arclash Chain Lightning. Effectively, you have your Arclash, Chain Lightning, Frost Nova, Frost Shield, and then effectively Unstable Currents. Now, you can get into a battle system with this where you walk in, you let all the enemies come to you, stomp the ground, Frost Nova, freeze everybody, you Frost Shield, which will up your crit damage and stuff like that. Then you'll unstable current, so then you're throwing things out left, right, and center. Then you chain lightning until all your mana's out, and then you start arc lashing everybody. Next thing you know, everyone's either stunned or dead and finished. But
Nice.
I've been finding it's a great game. Look, it's a long time between drinks, so it's kind of a little bit hard to stick with the lore. I was just Googling it before. I think Diablo 3 came out in about 2012 and Diablo 2 was 2002. So they're keeping nearly a decade between. So I know we spoke the other week, Troy. Deckard Cain doesn't seem to have. He hasn't reared his head yet, which is sort of it. But I'm told from one of my mates who's a little bit further along in the picture that he does. There's references to him.
Well, can I jump in on that, mate?
You go.
So with my history of Diablo, I'm well aware that the story only gets good once Deckard Cain's in it. So I've been skipping every cutscene and conversation until Deckard Cain appears. So on level 32, I have no idea what's going on with anyone, anywhere. So I'm keen for Deckard Cain to appear. Sorry, Ace, back to you.
He might appear. Now, look, if I was going, a couple of tips, if I was giving anyone who's just picking up this game today, now, you might be inclined to go World Tier 2 because they sort of sell it to you in a sense that you get more gold and you'll get more experience.
That's exactly what I've been doing, man.
But from my experience, what I found now, the extra time that it takes to go through World Tier 2, the extra experience that you get is offset if you just go to World Tier 1 because you're actually clearing through the story and clearing through the side missions a lot quicker.
Getting that mount. When do you get the mount?
Man, I'm still at this. I finished chapter 2. Spoilers. I finished chapter 2 thinking that I was going to get the mount because I was talking to a guy Doonan out there. So I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
No mount. So that's obviously further along. But look, so far in my 3 playthroughs, I took the druid up to level 14 and I found him didn't deal a lot of damage. Was very tanky, had a high survivability, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I switched over to the Barbarian, took him up to level 31, had my struggles with the Barbarian, tried him a little bit at World Tier 2, really struggled, took it back to World Tier 1, and he was just wasn't getting it for me. And then I switched over the Mage. I started the Mage on World Tier 2, and it was just an absolute burn through. Now, I put about 15 hours into the Barbarian, got him to level 31. I reckon I put 10 hours into the Mage, and I've got him about 32 and probably a chapter and a half further into the storyline than the Barbarian.
Well, there you go. That's the pro tip. After the show tonight, I'll be dropping down to World Tier 1 and resuming.
I tell you, it's a lifesaver. And look, you still get the challenge, you still get swarmed, but I find it almost... look, a lot of the time for me, when playing a game like this and sort of any other game, you want a little bit of that feeling of, that superiority, that little bit of a superpower, be able to walk in, clear an entire dungeon in 15, 20 seconds, and have that little bit of satisfaction. Sometimes that feeling of grinding through some of the boss fights and stuff like that, like I did with the Barbarian, you sort of walk away and you're like, I'm running around scrambling for life potions because I'm down to my last one. I've got bugger all health left. All my things are on cooldown. It's almost a little bit annoying. A couple of times, a few bosses with the Barbarian, I sort of died when I was really close to finishing it, and it was almost more frustrating having to go back and start the whole thing again. But been much more enjoying the Mage. I never thought I'd be a Mage man, but yeah, thoroughly enjoying it. And look, I've looked up a few things. There's several builds for the Mage which are just as successful as the Arc Lash / Chain Lightning Mage.
Nice work, man. Well, instead of looking things up, I've been struggling. And then when I got in real trouble, as you can see on screen here, I just dialed up Uncle Unky. Unky Dunky, come on in, save me. We partnered up and he just jumped in and killed the boss for me. I'd been stuck for hours.
And you're using the Necro, yeah?
That's right. Loving the Necromancer. By default, I love playing the Crusader first, but there's no Crusader or yet. I guess we've got to wait for that DLC. But can anyone... Oh, Bully, have you played? Are you Diablo 4ing?
Yeah, I have. I reckon I put probably, I'm not sure what level I'm at, but probably about 15 hours into the Barbarian.
Nice. And has anything Ace has just said swayed you? Are you going to maybe re-roll something? Or?
I don't know. These sort of games, that's generally my my go-to. I generally avoid the mage or the magic ones. I know with a lot of them that there's a bit of a struggle early on, but once you sort of start to get your powers and get used to what you're doing, you can actually do a hell of a lot of damage and you can start progressing fairly early. But it's just, something I've done for probably 35 years is the barbarian, just the melee attacks and the tank. You know,
mate, I was 100% the same. Used to love that leap. Used to love that whirlwind attack. I was all about it. And like, so, you know, when I heard the druid, who was a good mix of like the barbarian slash, I'd almost call a mage with like these shape shifting skills. I was like, man, that should be me. And he was so slow. The damage rate was just low. Crit manage was low. I just didn't thoroughly enjoy it. And so I went to the barbarian. I was like, oh, Faithful will save me. And he didn't hit like he used to. And yeah, that was, yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll give it something else a shot. And I know I thoroughly would suggest to anyone to give the mage a try if they've never gone down that path, because it's something different this time, and I think works really well.
Yeah, well, I might have a look at that after. As I said, I've got to pound through Final Fantasy, so depends what takes my fancy when that one's finished. But I've certainly got to get back into it. I suppose the only question I've got is, I know that they were sort of doing seasons, which I think the first one starts in the next day or two if it hasn't started already.
Now, I think, yeah.
And there was issues with, or there was quite a few people complaining when it was announced that you basically have to start back at level 0 to start in the new season. So you almost have to start a new character. Whatever character, you might have had a level 100 character or whatever it is, you effectively have to start back at 0 again for the new season. So that was sort of weighing on my mind a little bit about jumping back into it. Do I jump back into it and play a bit more, or do I wait until season 1 starts and then create a new character and go from there, which is probably what I'll end up doing, given that it'll probably work out pretty well time-wise. I'll finish Final Fantasy hopefully today or tomorrow, and then I can jump over into the first season of Diablo proper, I guess.
You've just blown my mind, Value. I had no idea that was a thing. I'm going to have to start a new character.
Wait. Now, my mate was telling me about this, and I was like, surely you're wrong. Like, they're not going to take your character you put, hundreds of hours, 100 hours into, and take him back to 0. And he goes, no, they are. So when they dropped it, I sent him a message before, because I think it's on now. And I said, are you at 0? He goes, no, I'm still not at 0. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, because I
think there's two parts to it from what I've read. You can continue the character you've got in the world that you've got with the base level stuff that was in the launch window, or if you want to play the season drops as such, each new season that comes out, which admittedly I haven't put a heck of a lot of time into looking at what each season brings, but for each season that comes in, I'm assuming that there's weapons and the standard loot drop sort of stuff you get, along with some extra quests and stuff. But if you want to partake of getting into that new season and having the opportunity to get the new drops and that sort of stuff, you have to start a new character at 0.
Well,
wow, I'm shocked.
And may I say, if that is the case, like it's almost a deal breaker for me, because like if you got to play through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 again, like, because traversal, and like we're talking about with getting the mount, like traversal is at times can be a bit of a pain in the ass, and you're literally just trekking through the same field of monsters and going again and again and again. But like, at least when you're playing it through, you're getting that feeling of satisfaction. You're making it to the next waypoint. You're making it next to the waypoint. You're getting the Lilith, the shrines of Lilith. But yeah, if you got to go back.
Yeah, so, and as I said, I haven't had that much of a look into it, so it might not be that you have to redo the whole story, but to advance into the new season content, that you have to start at 0. How that ends up working in a practical sense, I'm not 100% sure, but that's the feedback that a lot of people had, was exactly what you were saying, Ace, is that they pumped, literally dozens or hundreds in some cases of hours into the game, got their characters up, level 100 plus, and they're saying, well, you drop this now, all this time and effort that I've put in, you're making me go back to 0 again. And I think Blizzard sort of came out and gave some half-winded excuse about what they thought, that it would basically provide more longevity for the game, and that there'd be new things that they'd be able to do and that sort of stuff. But whether that washes with the hardcore or even the casual, it sort of goes, well, hang on, I've put 15, 20, 30 hours into it. Well, I'm not going to start back at 0. You can forget it, and they drop out. I don't know.
That's wild. My question then is, I'm hoping, I guess, does the stash at least carry over? Like, could you start new character, different class in the new world with the new drops and then stash them back to an old character that you have put 100 hours into? I got no idea. Wild guessing.
Not sure.
The other thing I will mention to anyone who hasn't played this game and is looking at playing it, there is no pause. It is a live MMO. You are active all the time. It is something that sort of shocked me a little bit. Now, unlike the previous Diablo games, you don't need town portals. You don't need to collect them. You have a unlimited supply of town portals, and you can always portal back to town. But as much as I like the game, there are some little elements to it that I sort of like. Why would you do that? And this is one of the other ones. If they're going to send everyone back to zero, I'm hoping more like in the Battlefield and Warzone sort of, they just expand on it. They up the level cap and they open up a new world, and you can continue your character through there. That's what I'm hoping, because I think that would probably be the smart move.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can't fathom why there's no pause. And you can look at other similar games like your Soulsborne games, or the single player games. I can't fathom why you can't pause it. And I understand Diablo, you can have people come in and do co-op and that sort of stuff, but I still can't. If you're playing it as a single player, not in a group, why you can't pause it? It makes no sense.
Why I can't just, if it's a 100 gig download, why can't I just go solo? So I'm playing local and just pause it whenever I want. Look, I've got a 2-year-old and he likes having little tantrums during the middle of the night. So sometimes I'll load this up. I'll be in the middle of the dungeon. He'll have a little tanny. I've got to get up. But before I get up, I've got to teleport back to town, get up, go and sort him out, then come back, go back in. Now, granted to the game, they always keep wherever you done your portal. When you go back in, it's right where you left it, and you walk back in right where all the dead bodies are still there.
Do you know if that holds over a log out?
Now, apparently, people are getting logged out. If you get disconnected, you'll get logged out.
And then does the town portal stay, or are you then done? Like, do you have to start again?
Yeah, you have to start again. So there is no holdover in that sense. Like if you get disconnected, you get booted, and you start again. There's a couple of times where I've called a portal, gone out, left the game, turned the PlayStation off, gone to bed, come back the next day, work, blah, 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 come home, turn it on. I've got to trek all that way back and start the whole process. So there's
painful.
There's little things like that where I'm just like, I'm playing this as a single player, and I should be granted that. If I want to go online, I can go online, and I've had zero interaction with anyone online.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well, if you get in trouble, I highly recommend it. But no, I take your points, man. A lot of those features would be nice, and hopefully they'll roll them out soon. I reckon this will probably do us for Diablo 4. But before we move on, Ace, can you give us a score? Where's it sitting for you, this one, numbers-wise, out of 10?
Oh, look, it's hard to say. And, we always say this out of 10 ratio, and you got to put it up against games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, which I haven't played yet. And so, look, if I was to say, and I'm a big Diablo fan, so I'm probably saying realistically, compared to all those sorts of other games, somewhere around that 6.5.
Oh, wow.
Which is, retrospectively, a good score, a good game that you want to keep coming back to on its own merits versus other previous Diablos. Look, the graphics are great. The combat feels good. It's weighty. So it's probably up there. I wish they just removed that MMO option and just made it a single player.
Fair enough. What about you, Bully? Where are you sitting numbers-wise with Diablo 4?
Oh, from what I've seen, probably about the same as 6 or a 7. It's got charm, but it's also got, as we've discussed, there's drawbacks to it with a couple of things. And it'd be interesting, as we just talked about, it'd be interesting to see how this season thing works out, because if that's the case, from what I've read, I reckon that's an absolute killer for it in some respects, especially for the casual audience. You're going to have your hardcore fans that are just going to, suck it up, get back into it and create a new character. But certainly for the casual fan or someone that just likes to jump in and out occasionally, if you want to get into that season mode, it sort of puts you off. And hopefully, like I said before, they keep that original world without the extra content that you can jump back into if you just want to play it on and off. But I don't know whether I'll spend a heck of a lot more time into it, or whether it's just one of those things that it's nice to jump into for a couple of hours every month or so and and have a bit of a play around in it, and sort of that's enough for me and move on, which is probably where I'm at the moment, to be honest.
Fair enough.
One last thing I'll just say. The one thing that does keep intriguing me about this, and like I told you, I've done an Arc Lash / Chain Lightning build with my Mage or Sorcerer, whatever you want to call it. There are like lots of different builds. You can go Fire, you can go Blizzard, Ice. So that aspect of it, like, and many times in my playthrough, which if you're playing through and you get bored of your style, at any time you can reset all your skills, and it costs a little bit of gold, pretty much nothing. And you can respec your whole character, but that aspect of it is the only thing that would possibly bring me back to sort of go, okay, I'll have another crack, and this time I'm going to try the ice build, or I'm going to try the flame build. So that could get me back, but yeah, if I lost my 32 mage now, I'd be pretty hard pressed.
I wonder what they're going to do when season 2 happens. Is it like the character you built with season 1 then gets shelved, and then you're starting a new character for season 2? Because that'd be even crazier.
I think that's the premise behind it. Exactly that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Some odd choices there. For me, Diablo was sitting, I was going to give it an easy 8, but you blokes are talking it down a fair bit. Now I'm going to have to reconsider.
Look, the 6.5, anything over 5 is good. We've got to remember that. Like, so
no,
5
I hear you, but
yeah.
when I'm playing minute-to-minute gameplay, I love the loop in it.
I'm loving it. Man, I'm sucked in and I can't wait.
Yeah.
But, with a few of those little niggles and twigs, like if they was a single player option, it would be an 8, 100%.
All right, there we go. Very good. All right, then game 3. Hey, this is me, and this is Exoprimal. The dropped day 1 into Game Pass, which was last Friday, I want to say. Now, I thought this was a very budget type game myself. It struck me as I understand why they didn't go for big day 1 sales and they threw it in Game Pass. Bully, have you gone hands on with this one?
I have. It is Exoduddle, and I'm instead of dropping it on the Go Pass, I should have just dropped it straight in the trash.
Wow, that's a bit more harsh than I was thinking.
I just think it harkens back almost to a PS3, Xbox 360, co-op shooter type thing, and it's I've probably put an hour or 2 into it, and that was more than enough for me. But the gameplay cycle and the gameplay loop of being put in a crew, moving from spot to spot, each spot you get to, you get a whole heap of dinosaurs jumped on you that you've got to take out. Then you do that 4 or 5 times, and then it's a battle against the other, and then it becomes a PvP battle against other players, and then that's the game. And unless I'm missing something or have not progressed far enough into it, but I played 3 or 4 games of that, and that was the gameplay loop, and that's it.
That is my understanding, man. Exactly what you said is the gameplay loop, and very much to your point, I can't see me going back in unless they add something new. I played the tutorial intro bit. I played 1 online match and thought, yep, this has less appealed to me than, what was it? Overwatch 2. And I only booted Overwatch 2 up once. I cannot see me getting back to Exoprimal. But I'm not a big fan of the old dinosaur games. I know Unky is, but were you a big fan of, I'm trying to think of the dinosaur.
Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis, thank you.
Oh, I love Dino Crisis. That was, to see Dino Crisis was almost a Resident Evil style game in some sense. So it was almost a survival horror game.
Yeah,
that's why I really enjoyed it. And it's the gameplay in this is there's no other way to say it. It's boring.
So it's the only horror element.
The only horror element is that I turned it on and played it, and I was horrified that I kept playing it for more than 5 minutes. But even as you move through each section, you get to that one point where it releases all the dinosaurs. That's not even fun killing the dinosaurs. You just get a couple of hundred thrown at you. You and the squad, you've got your special abilities that. One of the ones I was using had like a grenade launcher. So you throw a grenade launcher out and it just wipes out the entire lot. So there's almost no skill element to it whatsoever. Because if you have a few players that have that use that special skill, you just wipe them all out as soon as they come in. And it's, you do that 4 or 5 times, and then you might get to the last place or the last checkpoint that you need to get to, and they might have a bigger dinosaur come out that, it takes a bit more hit damage to take out. But even that's not fun.
Yeah. I hear you, mate. It certainly doesn't do it for me. I don't think I'll be going back to it. Now, Ace, I don't think you've looked at Exoprimal. Is that right?
And it looks very basic.
You've done yourself a favour.
And it just looks like can I say a basic bitch? Pretty standard gameplay, pretty standard. Everything that I'm watching in these video clips, I'm like, yeah, you've done that a million times, but by the sounds of things, they've done it a million times, but only better. So,
well, and that's what I just said when you stepped out there. It's an Xbox 360 / PS3 era game in my mind. This is the sort of stuff that they were pumping out 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, even the graphics, even those dinosaurs look Jesus. Anyway, I tell you what, when you got some top shelf games, and look, I'm going to put Diablo, Final Fantasy, Tears of the Kingdom, stuff like that. People, putting in some real effort, and it's hard to say, oh yeah, but I'm going to go put 15 hours into this when you got those things sitting on the shelf.
Well, and that's the annoying thing with it too, because it's a Capcom game, and when they first revealed it. And in the first, sort of 10 or 15 seconds of the gameplay trailer on the reveal, everyone was getting excited, thinking it was Dino Crisis coming back, because there's been a fairly hardcore contingent for a long time wanting that game back, and they haven't given it to us. And there was a few people getting excited when they dumped this trailer, and then, oh, hang on, no, it's not Dino Crisis, it's Exoprimal, and then you start seeing more and more of it, and you're just going, why?
Let's all be honest. What was the last real Capcom game that got released that you're like, oh my god, that blew your mind? They're all very arcadey. Like you could feel yourself playing this game.
It's
dropping dollar
Resi 4.
All
the Resi games are Capcom.
Was Street Fighter 6 Capcom, I think?
Bit scary for me, and I don't do fighting games. I did like didn't they do that Metal Gear Solid one? Oh no, it felt like a Capcom game.
No, that was Konami.
Rising.
Konami. Yeah. After Hideo Kojima left, they did Metal Gear Rising or something like that, and it was trash. Yeah,
but that felt like a Capcom game. So I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, this looks like that one.
It very unfavorably reminded me of now I'm blanking on it. What was it? The EA one they're going to shut down soon. The Iron Man one.
Oh, Marvel Avengers.
Not the one before that. What was it? With the, you hop in the mech suits, fly everywhere. The flying was the only good thing.
Anthem.
That's the one I was searching for. It reminds me of the Anthem ground game when you're playing it, which isn't high praise. But
Anthem got the best I tried a bit of Anthem. Like the graphics in that was out of control. I was like, why isn't this game better? It was driving me nuts.
Because BioWare don't make those games.
Exoprimal could drive you nuts too, Ace. Keep an eye out for it in the cheapo bin. Bully, over to you for game 4. Ravenlock?
Well, this sort of came out of the blue for me. It was dropped onto Game Pass, and I saw it when it was released and sort of had a bit of an interest in it. And there was... I didn't get to it when it was released, and I was sort of in between games at one stage and thought, oh, all right, I'll jump into it and have a look. It is amazing. It is an amazing game. It's almost basically a retelling of Alice in Wonderland to a large degree, but it's a lot darker. And just the way that they redo the characters and a lot of that you've got the Queen of Hearts in there as sort of basically the main enemy in the game that you're up against. You've got a lot of the characters from Alice in Wonderland, and as dumb as this sounds, and I even talking about it, it sounds ridiculous that you're pumping up an Alice in Wonderland game, but it is absolutely amazing. It's got very much the 90s, early 90s Zelda type gameplay, like with the sword combat in it. It's got some light puzzle elements. I thoroughly enjoyed it to the point where I sat there over 2 nights, and being on Game Pass, it doesn't have a platinum. It's just got the gamer score. I pumped out and did the whole 1,000 gamer score in 2 nights. I was just riveted with it. I just loved it. I thought it was amazing.
So you're saying it did the Alice in Wonderland story better than, what was her name? Freya, Forspoken. That was the world's worst interpretation of the Alice in Wonderland story.
Well, it's funny you say that, just to get off topic for a little bit, but I think from what I saw a week or 2 ago, they've actually released a whole bunch of new patches and updates for it that is, from my understanding, is it's actually not a bad game now. So that might be one I'll jump back into at some stage. But in terms of the story itself, it does it in the limited time I've played Forspoken. It certainly does the story a lot better. The graphical style's a lot better. The combat's a lot better. I really enjoyed it, and it's on Game Pass. If you haven't tried it out, check it out. If you do have Game Pass, and it's not a massively long game, as I said, I'll probably put a couple of nights into it, and maybe 10 or 15 hours to run through the story and collect everything, get 100% and 1,000 gamer score. But
are there any platforming sections?
No.
Oh, so that time might actually be accurate for me then.
No, I don't think it was any platforming sections, but it's very much like if you were to redo the gameplay style, taking the Alice in Wonderland stuff out of it, but the gameplay style itself was, if you were to redo some of the early 2D Zelda type games, and you were to make them a current gen game, this is what you would get.
Yeah, okay. High praise. Sounds interesting. You got my ears peaked. Ace, does this sound like something you'd play? I know you're not an Xboxian, so you'd have to wait for release, but...
Yeah, definitely when you sort of said that Zelda style, and then I looked up at the screen and it had, like, obviously when you had a boss encounter, I saw the name pop up, and I remember that from the old, like, Ocarina of Times, and so then even myself, I was like, oh, a little bit, it's got like a look of Kingdom Hearts sort of almost to it. It's sort of cartoonish style, so... Look, if I had the Xbox, it'd probably on the list. But again, like, there's so much good quality content coming out these days that you can't play everything. So this would probably be a back burner no for me.
Very good.
But interested.
I love it. And it's just single player, isn't it, Bully?
Yeah, just single player. And I suppose that's probably the good thing with it is, as I said, to complete everything in its, maybe 15 hours, to run through the main story itself might take you 10 hours. And for me, it was just that really, really good length of, I just need a break from some of the other games I was playing. Let's jump into this. And it was a great just break from...
Can you pause?
You can pause.
That's interesting.
Maybe Blizz should take a note.
What an interesting concept.
Next thing you know, they'll start putting on the back of the box as part of the description. This game can pause.
Yeah, it'll have the icons on the back, one player, co-op, online, and pause. Yeah.
Excellent. Now over to you, Ace, and I understand you've been shooting some hoops in NBA 2K23. Tell us things.
Well, representing. So look, in short, it's a bit of a same, pardon my pun, pardon my language, but same shit, different smell. This NBA 2K, it's just obviously they've taken on 22, 21, 20 before that, and they've just given it a little bit more polish, given it a little bit more play style. I'm a big sports fan, and I love the NBA. And one of my favorite modes in this is my GM, where I get to go in and just make a team however I want. The biggest thing that I've been doing in this lately is going fantasy draft. So I'm going back all the other teams, and I'm doing little quirky things like taking all the number 1 picks, taking all the number 2 picks, and building the best team, 3 picks, number 4. Look, the game style, fluent, it feels a little bit more slower than probably previous. The shooting mechanic, for some reason in this system, it's a bit more tighter. So in previous iterations, sort of hitting threes have probably been, you could shoot at a 50% clip. I feel like at this one at the moment, I'm probably down around 38, 39, 40%. But like the actual game style, how it moves, how it looks, like 2K just do a really good job. That's why they're making money hand over fist. That's why they're doing these tournaments. And this is just another fine example of a good sporting game. And probably realistically, next to Madden and this, probably the 2 best sporting games available on any platform at the moment.
Is this the first basketball you played in the current gen?
This is the first PS5 direct game. So it came out free on the PS5 PlayStation Store the other day. Yep. I think you might have texted me and said 2K's out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, beautiful. Went and downloaded it straight away. So the first PS5 direct game, yes. So I was playing the PS5.
Have you noticed anything? Is there something like this generation? Oh, wow, they couldn't do this previously. Is there any wow factor?
Look, some of the video clips that you're seeing now, and I've watched the replays of these videos, like the Jordan beating, I think that was the Utah Jazz in that game, and they recreated in the 2K mold. And so some of the stuff you're watching, you're like, wow, like they just keep getting better at polishing it. And obviously as technology grows, their motion capture grows, you can see. And look, previously, like you could change any character's jump shot. This was just something that I noticed the other day when I was tweaking a few things because I didn't like one of the ways this player shot, and I just couldn't shoot with him. But there was this other player who had the same timing on their shot, but I could shoot really well with him. So then I went in to change his shooting motion to the other guys. But it seems now like they've motion captured nearly every NBA player on there. Like you can go through every single player, and just Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, just to name the Australian guys, Paddy Mills.
I'll pull you up there. Ben Simmons doesn't shoot, so
exactly,
I don't know how they'd motion capture that.
But they've done his motion capture. Like that was the surprising thing, because it used to be like maybe there was 10 of the top like NBA players and they'd motion captured all of them, and then it was all just generic, and like a lot of the players all just had generic. But now like the list is just crazy. I'm like, how's Kristaps Porzingis? Like when do they get him into the 2K office and like, right now we're going to motion capture you? So in sense of that, like it's amazing. Like, and obviously it's just something that they keep building on, they keep adding. And look, some people would be into the my player, not for me. Some people are into the what do they call it, my team, where you collect the cards and stuff like that. I could see a little bit of the draw to that, but for me it's just my GM, and I just love building new teams and starting again and building a new team. So I'm playing on I think the second hardest difficulty. But yeah, it's a great game. If you're into sports, it's a great game.
Excellent work. Thank you for the summary. Bully, any final points on NBA?
No, just with the game modes there. So I think that one you're talking about with the cards you get, I think that's where the money sink is. So to be able to get a decent team on the court, you're going to have to spend real money or sink a significant amount of hours into it. The one mode that I've played in this that I've really enjoyed is the Jordan mode. So they basically recreate a whole bunch of iconic moments, and you've seen quite a few of them on the screen there, but iconic moments from Jordan's career right through from his college days through to the NBA. And when you talk about some of the graphical style of it, Troy, before, so the first one that you play through is one of the championship games when he was playing for North Carolina, and they actually change. So what you're seeing on screen is, the normal graphical type settings. What they actually do when you're playing as him in the college system in the 1980s, it looks like you're watching a basketball game from the 80s. They've got like the screen filter on it has that sort of washed out effect. It's, even the scorecards are changed and the on-screen graphics are changed to resemble what you would get in the 1980s. And it looks amazing when you're playing it.
All right, tech nerd question. Do they make it 4-3 at that point?
No.
They're just not trying.
One of the things on that I noticed, so in my GM mode, so they call it error mode. So it took me a long time to work out. I'm like, where's my GM mode? And it was called my error mode. So you can play from, I believe it's the Kareem Abdul, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and then current. Now, so for instance, I went back to the Michael Jordan era and I started playing in the my GM mode, and then I went into the game and it's telecast as like back then, like it's got the same square box ESPN. I'm like they've gone that far into the detail, and then when you play current, like it looks like a current, how like the bottom screen is now.
That's awesome.
Balls and stuff like that. So look, kudos to them. Like they do a really good job, and I sink a lot of hours into these games. And the best thing for me about 2K, if it's 9 o'clock, 9:30, and my wife's going, oh, I'm going to go to bed now, and right, I've got half an hour to just burn some bit of time. I chuck this on, I play a game, I walk away feeling satisfied. And as far as sports game, if you're going to make me rank it, it's 9.5.
I guess the final question from me then is it enough to get you out for a purchase of 2K24?
Oh, look, I always buy them, but I always wait until they're on special. Yep. I never buy them first day because there's enough of the previous era. Like the changes, and generally with the 2Ks, I wait 2 years. I find that the upgrades always come sort of in 2 years. So at the moment I'm working odd years, so 21, 23.
Yeah, okay.
And look, I just find that there's always a bigger jump to the second year than buying it every year.
Yeah, nice one. Very good. All right, then. Game 6 this evening. Now, in the little lull, I have been putting time, believe it or not, back into Rocket League, and it's still one of my favorite games out there. And I'm going to ask this question again, not expecting an answer from either of you blokes, but maybe someone in the audience can tell me, why is it that the Xbox Series X has a native version of Rocket League, yet the PlayStation still only has the PS4 version? I don't understand it. I'd love to know. I haven't seen a story written on it, but there is a story behind the deployment of Rocket League, I'm sure. But fantastic game. I absolutely love it. You don't need to hear me bang on about it anymore. However, I don't think we've ever heard Ace's thoughts. Ace, do you play Rocket League, man? What are your thoughts?
No, not even a second. I think you've sent me a couple of snips that I've chucked up on the TikTok account.
Yes.
But no, it's not been something that I haven't been interested in. Not that I like sports, but no, not for me.
Fair enough. No Rocket League for you. I'll just pump up then that we're in week 2 of the current Rocket League season. So there's another, 10 weeks to go. Now is the best time to jump on into Rocket League play. We've got a G.E.A. crew, so by all means, join us. Yes, Ace.
Did they start you back at level 0 in the new season?
Well, they do a really weird system. There's like an overall character level, which I think I'm like level 468 or something. But then they also have a season level. So each season level, they reset you to 0, but you've got still like the ongoing full career one, which stays with you, which is nice. But yeah, season, I think I'm like level 12 or something for this season.
And is it cross-play? Are you playing people?
Yeah, cross-play, cross-progression. I think Rocket League on every platform, like Switch included, everything has a version of Rocket League. Fantastic stuff. I absolutely love it.
Maybe we can do a live play and you can embarrass me and I'll come on.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, Ace. I absolutely love me some Rocket League. 2 big thumbs up. I can't recommend it enough. And as I always say, guys, it is free to play now. Get on it. Rocket League. All about it. You should definitely be playing it. But that is it for Game 6. Bully's not there, so no comments from him. Game 7. This is a really quick one. Stranded Deep. Now, I assume everybody added it to your PlayStation Plus library when it was included a couple of months ago. But look at this, Ace. You just have to join one multiplayer session now, and it's like a virus, the platinum. Watch what happens here as soon as I load in. Bang, all the trophies start popping. If you join any multiplayer game now on Stranded Deep, you'll get a platinum in about 3 minutes. So this is just a heads up. If you've had PlayStation Plus for a while, you've probably got the game for free in your library. Boot it up now, join a multiplayer game, and add one shiny new platinum to your collection for little to no effort. I can't recommend it highly enough.
I played this game. This was it was kind of difficult.
Yeah. Well, if you want the platinum, mate, you can act like you did it. You did everything in it. It'll only take a couple of minutes.
I'll take the trophy. Thank you very much. Don't tell Unky.
There's no chance you would have heard it just then. Now, I need to take a slight active reload. On the other side of it, we will be back with the news, everyone. Give us 1 minute. We'll be right back. You have the right to remain newsworthy. This is the news segment, everyone. Hi, welcome to it. First up this week, it never rolled out here in Australia, but the what was it? The Xbox Game Pass family and friends. It was essentially 5 people could have, 5 accounts linked to one subscription, and just made accessing it cheaper. They rolled it out in a bunch of countries. But they are pulling an end to it. But the interesting thing here on the official site is that they are going to shut it down for now, but then they're going to work out how to build an offer which we can launch worldwide. So it's not dead as such. They've just taken it offline for a minute, and it'll be back shortly. But, Bully, have you got the tinfoil hat there, mate?
I may have him there.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now that I've got the tinfoil hat on screen, Bully, do you think there's any chance that the re-rolled Xbox Game Pass family and friends, as it will reappear, will be including PlayStation?
To be honest, I don't see it coming back because I know that they've said they're going to go away and work on it, but I see it very similar to the Netflix that we've seen probably, what was that, late last year, early this year, where they cancelled that account sharing thing because Xbox may well have seen the result of that. And from what I read last week is that Netflix subscriptions are up 5.3 million since they got rid of the sharing ability. So I don't know whether Microsoft sort of look at that and going, oh, we're actually costing ourselves a fair bit of money here by allowing this. And if we push it so that each individual has to have a Game Pass account, we may be able to push up subscription numbers that way. I'm not sure. That's just me reading into it. And
I think your read on that is far better than mine. Yours sounds far more business minded, I suppose. I like the analysis. Ace, any thoughts from you, mate?
Look, anything to make money, companies are going to do it. And that just seems to be the way of the world these days. And they're going to milk every cent out of us that they can. And although we think we're getting a good deal at the time,
well, they've got a $63 billion debt that they've got to pay off. So,
yep, well, you can probably imagine they're trying to think, maybe we can make some more money here. So.
Unrelated story. Did you notice weapon skins in Call of Duty this year are going to be $100 a pop?
I tell you what, I've got one of my mates, and shout out to Sponk, who loves spending $30, $50, whatever it is, every week, every month, whenever they drop something fresh, and I can't believe it. I can't fathom it. I'm just like, what? Why? For what? Like, and they want extra weapon, like cooldown slots for their DMs. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's just it's a game. We pay once, and then that's the product.
Well, that might roll into the next story then, Troy.
All right, then let's kick it over and have a look. It's not going to follow, so I'll do one of those. What have you got for us, Bully? Story 2.
So Activision have come out and said that the Modern Warfare 2 content will transfer over to the newer version that's going to come out later this year. And I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Modern Warfare 3.
Is it going to be Modern Warfare 3? Well, there you go.
I believe that is the rumoured story, yeah.
Yeah, so that would...
Oh, look, second, it's in the subline right here. This year's series entry is expected to be Modern Warfare 3.
There you go. So they are going to carry over some of the weapon content. Now, I don't know if that relates as well to Ace to the Warzone content, although I think that just sort of rolls over as it goes anyway, being a persistent online game. But certainly any of the stuff that you will use in the multiplayer suite of Modern Warfare 2 looks like it's going to transfer over. So he may be getting some value for money out of it if that's the case.
Look, so far with most of the DMZ, everyone every season they like, we're going to lose. You're going to lose all your stuff. You're going to lose all your stuff, and then every time we get a patch update, bang, comes back, and you still got all your stuff. So a lot of it's all just hearsay. And look, I think Activision do a pretty good job, and they make a good game, and they look after their gamers.
Fair call, man. Do you know if the weapon skins that you unlock in Warzone carry over to the standard multiplayer, or are they like 2 whole separate pools of skins?
My understanding is it basically, effectively, from what I know, and I play a lot of more DMZ based, but anything you buy basically transfers over all 3. So you can take it from DMZ into Warzone into just your standard multiplayer.
Great. I wonder if the save file from the end of Modern Warfare 2's campaign will tie into the start of number 3. That could be interesting if they're importing progress as well on that front.
Man, and not to do another game review, but this game, the campaign mode on this game is very underrated. So if you haven't played it, go and play it. There's some missions in there. There's some sections that you just like the realism,
even the intro.
graphics.
The intro mission, if you've got a good sound system, crank it
With
up
the
and play
missile?
that
Yeah.
launch missile. That
Yeah.
sounds phenomenal.
Oof. It blows your mind enough to give you a gamergism.
Very good.
I just quoted that. That's my word, so it's
I like it.
trademarked.
Patent pending. All right, then. Story 3, away from Ace's
Gamergism.
terms there. Yeah. Bully, a bit of Zelda news, mate.
Bit of Zelda news. So they released during the week that the highest selling games for the first 6 months of 2023 have been released, and this is just for Europe. So take that, I suppose, as I would look at it as indicative of worldwide, because it covers a fair amount of people there. But Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is the best-selling physical game. So they haven't released the digital sales yet, which some companies do and some don't, just depending on where they're at. But certainly the physical sales, and that is number 1 so far, beating out Hogwarts Legacy at number 2 and FIFA 23 at number 3. So if we're sort of going off the rough numbers, I think it was 10 odd million copies in the first 3 days for Tears of the Kingdom, and total sales up until I think the last I saw was maybe May for Hogwarts was somewhere around the 20 to 25 million mark for Hogwarts. So if they'd beaten that, you'd probably be looking at 25 to 30 million in physical sales at the moment. And, you know, if you throw digital on top of that, you might be going close to doubling it, which is a fair achievement in what's it been out now, just over 2 months.
Yeah. Well, the last number I saw, Bully, for titles that were available physically and digitally, it was more like 75% were digital, typically speaking, these days.
Yeah, and I suppose it just depends on the market, because I'm not sure what the breakdown in Europe is, but I know that that's the case for the US market. It's around that. I don't know whether the European market is the same in that context, or whether they're a bit more still in the physical base. But certainly, even if you split it at 50-50, and you said that off a guesstimate that Tears of the Kingdom's at about 25 odd million in physical sales, it would be a fair assumption to say that you're looking at a minimum of 50 in total sales when you combine digital into that, which is a massive effort, considering I think the total sales for the Switch are about, I think the last time I saw, about 120 to 130 million. So you're looking at almost half of every Switch console out there has Tears of the Kingdom in it, on it in some way, shape, or form.
That's epic. Now, do you think when they release Tears of the Kingdom for the Switch 2, they'll combine those two physical sales?
I would imagine they would, yeah. So it'd be similar to your G.E.A. 5, where they've combined sales for
the past 12 generations.
I think I think that was first released on the
360
on the SNES, was it? It's about time. Pull your finger out, Rockstar.
I did play that when I was 16. That game. I'm 39 now. So. just a quick one, and I am 100%. I'm in on this game, and it's in my backlog. And this is probably next cab off the rank. If I could get a 5-word review from both of you on this game, what would it be?
Well, I don't think you've played it, have you, Troy?
Yeah, waiting for the Switch 2.
Oh wow.
I'll see if I can do that in 5 words. Don't wait for Switch 2.
Can I get a quick breakdown on the Switch 2? You guys probably done a little bit more sort of groundwork with it. What are we expecting? Because they brought out the Switch with the OLED. So what are we getting with the Switch 2 that's going to make me go, okay, well, I'll try and trade this in, or I'll sell it. Why am I getting?
As far as I know, Bully, please correct me if I'm wrong, Nintendo have said absolutely zero about the Switch 2. So anything we say here is total speculation and hearsay. This is that correct, Bully? They've
pretty much
uttered
the word Switch 2, haven't they?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the general consensus is that we're looking at a probably late first quarter to early second quarter release. So that'd put it around March, April next year is basically what most of the pundits are looking at. As Troy said, it's probably pure speculation, but it will be interesting to see, because if they continue with what they've got at the moment, being able to have a hybrid console, which I think is where Nintendo need to go. That's their market, and they've done pretty well out of it. Is to how much they can beef up the processing power out of it, because what are we at, 6 or 7 years since the original Switch released, and it was showing its age after 2 or 3 years. It struggles to run most modern console games in an acceptable form. When you're talking about frame rate and graphical quality and all the rest of it, it struggles with that anyway. And that was going back 3 or 4 years ago. And it's a running joke that if there's a multi-platform game, you just wouldn't buy it on the Switch if you're serious about your gaming. So it'd be interesting to see how they do that. I personally don't think it's going to be up to the quality of the PS5 and the Series X and S consoles. So yeah, as you said, it's probably conjecture. I don't think it's going to be quite up to that quality, but you have to have that trade-off if you're going to go with a handheld mode as well.
I would argue they're going to have to go 4K 60 docked. I think if they released anything under 4K 60 docked, they're not going to get the sales penetration they think they will. 4K 60 docked, yeah, and it'll be, maybe 1440p 60 in handheld mode. Who knows?
Well, I suppose, and that's the thing though, is that we sit here as I guess quote unquote serious gamers that have the day one, or it certainly was for me, day one purchase for the new consoles and all that. And I'll be honest, it'll be a day one purchase for me when it does come out. But there is also that subset of the mobile gaming market is massive as well. As much as we laugh at it and joke about it, the mobile gaming market itself is really huge. And this is an in-between step of it doesn't carry the price tag that the PS5 and the Xbox have. But it's a step above the mobile. So it's that in-between space. And that's, I think, where they've done really well, and that's where they'll continue to do well, is that they're catering to both markets, but not quite at the same spec as the newer gen Sony and Microsoft consoles.
Fair enough.
There's aspects of it, like I wish Diablo 4 was on the Switch, but I believe it isn't up to date. And that's like I look at Diablo 4 and I go, great, the graphics are great on my big 75-inch OLED, Samsung QLED TV, but until we can sort of get to that stage where I'm playing games like that, and I know NBA 2K's on there, but I know there's a big graphical difference in the way the game runs back.
Well, it's funny you mentioned NBA, because that's one of the big issues with it, is you can't fit the game on a base console. You have to buy the game and get a memory expansion on the console as well, because you can't fit the whole thing on there.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Which is strange in and of itself, because I think it's only 32, off the top of my head, it's 32 gig storage just with a base console, and then you have to get an expansion on top of that, which is absurd. But it's funny you mentioned the handheld part of it, because that's the big selling point. Is a lot of people will, they might play games on other consoles, but it's the fact of it's handheld. I can take it with me. I can take it on the train to work or the bus to work, or if someone's sitting there watching TV, I can pull it out of the dock and play it next to them, and that sort of stuff. That's where their big selling points in, and that's where that sort of niche comes into it, to the point where a lot of people, from what I've seen, prefer to play games on the Switch even at a lower quality, because you have that capability to just pick it up and go.
Well, I'm sure you guys are, sorry, Troy, I'm sorry you guys are like me back in the day, and you might remember, you had your old NES, or you had your old Super Nintendo, you had your old Sega Master System, whatever it was you were playing on your PlayStation. You unplug all your cords and you wrap them all up and you put them in a bag and you take them over to your mate's place to play sort of, some game, whatever you're playing at the time. That was the big thing. That's the big thing now with the Switch. Like for me, and my boys, we might go camping, whatever, and we just literally, I just chuck the Switch and the charger in the bag. Bang, we're off. We go. We've got a couple of discs, a couple of games, and you can go anywhere you want and play. So that's been the massive So as long as they can work on that, and I think realistically for the Switch, all they really need to do, because the graphics on that screen is enough. Just give me more memory, give me more space, give me more ability to play bigger games with more that require more memory to run.
Well, I've got one for you on that. What's the chance? I assume you guys have been following the Blizzard Activision merger and all the investigations and such. You saw that there's the 10-year deal from Microsoft committing to bring Call of Duty now to Switch or Nintendo consoles.
It's also been signed by
a bunch of other cloud services.
No, it's only been signed. It's also been signed in the last hour or two by Sony.
Yes, but also the NVIDIA cloud's got it, and there's 3 or 4 other cloud services got it.
Yep.
My question to you is this. Is this Xbox forcing Game Pass on multiple platforms?
I think this is Xbox getting it past the regulators.
I agree, but why not have a meal of it while you're there? Yeah, you can have Call of Duty for 10 years. You just have to install Xbox Game Pass and we'll stream it straight to whatever console you want.
I think it's probably more likely on Nintendo. I don't think I think Xbox would love to have it on PlayStation, but it won't be reciprocated the other way. They don't want anything to do with it. So, is it an underhanded way to get in? Maybe, I don't know. But I see it. I just see it more as trying to appease the regulators and saying, no, we're not going to take all this stuff off. Look, we're even going to put it on the Nintendo Switch, which Activision haven't done for the last 7 or 8 years. They haven't had it on a Nintendo console. So I think it's more just an appeasement for the regulators to get the purchase through more than anything.
I just imagine they're doing some sort of shenanigans on the way through, but I take your point, mate. I hear what you're saying. Oh, my only other question, sorry, from earlier, have Nintendo ever said the stats of Switch play, like globally aggregate docked versus handheld?
Not to my knowledge, and I'm not sure how they would be able to pull that data as to whether...
I'm willing to bet Switch console logs its time played in both modes. I assume they'd pull that data as a matter of course.
Mate, all data is accessible.
Yeah, well, that's...
Once you click that, I acknowledge.
Oh, I imagine it would. I'm just looking at it thinking... Oh, no, I'm not saying they couldn't do it or they wouldn't do it. I'm just from a practical standpoint, how does it register that it's docked? Is it having... Because when you dock it, the same, I guess, plug or attachment that you put into the dock is the same one that you would put into a charger.
That's true, but
how does it know the difference between a charger or the dock?
A USB-C can transfer data.
Yeah, but it would know, the USB-C would know I'm taking the video or I'm not. Like the console would only have one video output, and it would either be I'm video outputting via the USB or I'm video outputting by the internal monitor.
Yeah. I guess you're right. No, and to answer your question, no, I haven't seen any data about the breakdown in percentages. But
I would love to know that.
I know personally, for me, unless I think the only time I've ever used it handheld is when I'm on a plane or something. Otherwise, it's docked every day of the week. Now, the opposite is said for my kids. So
yeah,
they'll play Fortnite. One of them will be on the TV and on the PlayStation or the Xbox or whatever, and the other one will be playing with them on the Switch on a handheld sitting next to them on the couch. So they would have pumped hundreds of hours into it on handheld mode. So I guess it just depends what your circumstances are, I guess. But yeah.
Oh, not to bring up the tinfoil cat again. Maybe you want to bring it up again, Bully. But my only concern is in sort of a comment that you said before, that if we sort of take like an Activision game and we say we're going to take it mobile and we're taking Modern Warfare mobile, and I used to play a mobile game called Marvel Strike Force, and effectively what it used to do was it would set timers for things. They would be like, you need to be there for this time now.
Like real world time, you mean?
Real world time. So there was an event and the event was running, and I was playing with the guys in America and we had to split times as Europe to that. And there was times where I had to wake up at like 3 a.m, log in, and do these sorts of things that, and if you didn't log in, then there would be a paywall that you would have to hit. You'd have to pay to sort of, and I could see like if they sort of went down this path with the Modern Warfare, they're going to go, okay, all right, now we're going to have events and events are going to run at this time, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. I know because there is actually a Call of Duty on the mobile, on mobile devices. I've never played it. I don't know how it runs, but whether that's included in that or whether it's just, the standard, but with reduced graphical capability, I guess. I don't know, but I have played, I think it was Black Ops 2 on the PS Vita, which runs okay. it's certainly no world beater, but it runs okay, and you get the experience out of it. And you do lose a bit compared to the PS4 or the Xbox One versions, but it still plays all right. So I imagine if you just dumb down some of the graphical quality on it, it would still play all right. But in terms of the features and stuff, I guess time will tell. I think from what I've seen, oh no, that was in relation to Game Pass. Sorry, they were talking about it wasn't the newer versions weren't going to hit Game Pass for another 2 or 3 years. I think so.
Very good. Let's move on to news story 4, shall we? Bully, something happening in the world of Diablo?
Diablo. So the Season 1 launch, which we talked about before, has caused some issues with players' progression in the original section, where it's nerfing some of their characters and ripping away some of their skill sets and all that sort of stuff. So again, I don't know. I know with Diablo 3 there was issues at launch around being able to, being able to get into the game and actually play it. But certainly they seem to have escaped that with the initial launch, and then a month or so later they've dumped into it trying to get the seasons into it. So be interested to see how that plays out and how they rectify it, if they can end up rectifying it. But it looks like, and we were talking about the Barbarian before, it looks like that's some of the builds that they were saying were the biggest problem. So there's the Whirlwind or Hammer of the Ancients build, and for the Sorcerer, the Devouring Blaze build, I think were the ones that were the particular issues, but I'm not sure about any of the others. There might have been some minor ones across the others, but they're certainly the two major ones that have caused issues. So how they go about fixing that, whether there's patches on that or whether it's, okay, let's go to the tin foil hat again. We've nerfed your character in the original month-long launch window. Bad luck, you're now going to have to pay the season pass and start your character again. We're going to force you to do it. Tin hat moment.
Look, we had a bit of a toilet paper shortage the other week, so if we didn't, I'd be bringing up the Golden Sook Award, and they'd be going out to all these people out there having a big whinge about being nerfed and stuff in the characters, because I had a quick playthrough today to send Troy some imagery, and everyone was telling me blah blah blah, everything's been nerfed, and I was walking through the game just the same as normal. You're all a bunch of sooks. Get on with it. If you like the game, play it. If you don't like it, piss off and play something else, because you're all a bunch of sooks. Like it hasn't changed at all. My mate who's playing the Barbarian, I sent him a message today once I started seeing all the streams and all the Reddit pushes coming through and the YouTube videos popping up in my thread. I said, so how you finding it? You must be, completely useless now, hitting like a wet noodle. He goes, no, it's the same. Nothing's changed. He goes, everyone's a bunch of whingers. So you're all a bunch of sooks. And if I had the tissue paper here, I'd be handing one out to all of you to wipe up your tears.
Perfect. I love it.
It's funny though, because you don't know how widespread it is sometimes, because I know there was some stuff going around about the Final Fantasy 16 blowing up PlayStation 5s, overheating them to the point of shutting down and all that sort of stuff. But what they weren't showing was whether people were actually cleaning their PS5 out. Like, is it sitting in the corner, having dust blown all over it? It's been sitting there for 2.5, 3 years that you've never gone to the point of cleaning the fan out or even dusting it off. Of course it's going to explode.
And point of order, sure, middle of winter here, Northern Hemisphere, middle of their summer. What's the chance people just need to maybe rack up the AC a little?
Well, and it's funny because I saw some people have pictures of it, and it'd be sitting inside an entertainment unit or a TV cabinet or whatever with absolutely zero ventilation, and you think, well, no wonder it's overheating. You're sitting it under there, you can't get cold air into it. Of course, it's going to happen. Well, it's just bad. I don't know. There's no pleasing some, but I suppose in respect to Diablo, it's going to happen. Like, as much as people don't. You don't want to see it happen. The reality is, you patch things. It's a computerized system. You're going to patch things. Sometimes things go wrong, and it's just the way it is. It happens. It's not just console gaming, PC gaming. It's electronics across the board, across the world. Sometimes things go wrong.
Indeed.
There was a Twitter post from Blizzard acknowledging that some things may have changed, and they've called for I don't know what it means, a campfire meeting. I believe it's on tomorrow in the States, wherever Blizzard is state. So they're going to start addressing it. So you can expect what everyone is whinging about and everyone's having a big sook about is probably going to be addressed within the next week. So
excellent,
yeah,
mate.
and that's the thing. Like you said, give them a chance to fix it before you come out with a carry-on. Just say, yep, all right, it's nerfed me character. Is there any way that can get fixed? Let him have the opportunity. We don't need to come out all guns blazing and criticising all and sundry because something mucked up along the way for a small percentage of people.
Yeah. They're quick onto it.
Well said, boys. I like it. Story 5 this evening. Oh, that's Venom if ever I saw him, Billy.
Well, it's a new look that Insomniac have shown. So I would imagine as we creep closer to its release in October that we're going to get a few new screenshots and maybe some more gameplay footage as well. But certainly they've shown us a bit of a screen there of Venom and what he's going to look like in the game. So for me, I'm almost at the point, and I sort of get this with a lot of games that I'm highly anticipating, is that I think I've seen enough that it's going to be day one for me, and I get to the point where I sort of go, okay, I almost sort of tune out to a lot of that because it takes away for me a little bit of the enjoyment the first time you see him in the game itself, moving around and how they look and all the rest of it. I like being able to see that the first time myself as you're enjoying the game and getting into the story and the gameplay and all that sort of stuff. So I'm almost at the point now where I'll just go, that's enough sort of preview for me. And but having said that, I get why they do it because they want to hype it up. They want to get the excitement going. And for people that might have been sitting on the fence for whatever reason, whether it's enough to get them over the line, I'm not sure. But certainly for me, they can wind it up and just let it release.
Fair enough. Ace, where are you sitting on the old Spider-Man 2?
Oh, mate. There probably isn't too many days that you couldn't call me up and I haven't had a gamergasm about this. So unlike you, though, once they first sort of mentioned that first release trailer that they mentioned, and I watched it and I was like, cool, and then they sort of hinted it, I've stayed well out of it. So this is actually the first time I've seen it, and you kind of ruined it for me, and you didn't put up spoiler alerts. So, but yeah, the excitement, like the fact that you're going to go into the black suit, that you're going to fight Venom, Miles Morales, there's going to be some sort of like tie in there during combat. You might be able to switch between two. Yeah, and I really like the first one. I love this. This is a great take, and I love the way Insomniac did it. And I just wish they would do a Thor and an Iron Man. I just want them to take over the whole Marvel IP.
Yeah.
Well, Wolverine's coming next.
Man, if they had anything like that, the last Wolverine, remember where he was shredded and like if you get the chunks were getting blown out of you.
361, yeah.
Oh, the Origins, X-Men Origins Wolverine, yeah.
If they can do it like that, and you're fighting combat and you're seeing real time damage, and then it all restores, like damn, Insomniac.
Yep,
Legends.
totally. Now, the only other thing I want to point out about this story before we move on: since when does PlayStation give exclusives to Entertainment Weekly? Does that seem like something out of left field to you blokes?
Oh, whether it's just an audience capture thing, I guess, because people would read that would have watched Spider-Man movies or some of the other media and may not be aware that there's video games relating to it. I mean, maybe it's just trying to expand an audience. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but gone are the days of the IGN exclusive, I think.
Marvel is a dying breed.
You have to pay to be advertised on IGN.
Marvel's that whole life is dying, and so I think they're trying to reboot it in any way that they can, and so little things like this that might tweak people's interest, and if they're somehow relating this back to the MCU, that they're gonna sort of like try and like tweak things so they try and get people's interest back into things like She-Hulk and Echo that are coming out soon and things like that. So I gather they're all under the same umbrella and they're all trying to pat each other on the back.
Fair calls. All right, then we shall move along. Oh, this isn't a new story at all. This is the new releases coming out this week as thanks to the Game Informer. Bully, a list, please, my friend.
Oh, we've got July 18th, so a couple of days ago, Tomb, which Xbox XS and Xbox One, and that's on Game Pass, is to my understanding. For that one, don't know a heck of a lot about it. You've got Viewfinder on the PlayStation 5 and PC. Don't know much about that one either.
I believe it's a camera assembly simulator.
Okay. Have at it. Marquette, which also is on the Game Pass. It's being released for Xbox consoles. It did come out a couple of years ago, I think maybe 18 months or a bit over 2 years ago on PlayStation, and it was a PlayStation day one on the PS Plus service. I did put a bit of time into it on the PlayStation. It actually wasn't a bad little game, a little puzzler type game where you can, manipulate the world and make yourself bigger or smaller. And I didn't find it too bad, to be honest.
Do you know, mate, if it was, I think it was the PlayStation Plus, like the base tier, it was one of the free games, yeah? So
Yeah.
Well, there you go. If you've forgotten, maybe you did redeem it. So if you're a PlayStation person, it's possible you've got access to it at no additional cost. Back to you, Bully.
There you go, and that came out yesterday. We've got today releasing Might and Magic Clash of Heroes Definitive Edition on the PS4, Switch, and PC. And then we've got coming out tomorrow, July 21, Pikmin 4 on the Switch. I have never played a Pikmin game in my life. I'm not sure if you have, Troy, and can tell me anything about it. Otherwise, it seems to be getting some good reviews.
I don't know. No, I've never gone hands-on with a Pikmin. My question would be, is it Picross? Is it a version of Picross, or is it something else entirely?
No, entirely different game. I think you control these little Pikmin, I suppose. Well, funnily enough. From what I've seen, it's you control a whole bunch of these little Pikmin, and it's a puzzler / platformer type game. But as I said, I've never gone hands-on with it, so I couldn't tell you whether it's any good or not.
Fair enough. Well, Game Informer have given it a 9, so I guess it's at least 1.5 thumbs up from them.
And that is it for the new releases this week.
That is indeed, which means it is time for everyone's favourite segment. Fight! Bully, what are the constraints for this week, please?
Time flies when you're having fun, just like when you're watching G.E.A. So we are asking, what game made 10 hours feel like 1 hour? So essentially, what game do you lose track of time playing because it's so good, you only put a little bit of time into it, and next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you've got to get up for work.
And first on the list this week is Bully, your all-time favourite game, mate?
All-time favourite game, Witcher 3. Absolutely fantastic game. It's probably the one thing that sucks you into this is not so much the main story and the main quest. It's how amazing those side quests are, that you could, take a side quest, wander off, think, oh yeah, it's over there on the map, but it leads you down the rabbit hole, because you'll get to one point that leads you to another point, and so on and so forth. And what you think is going to be a quick little 20-minute, half an hour side quest ends up being 4 or 5 hours, and next thing you know, your night's frittered away into nothing, and the alarm's going off.
Yes, I definitely dropped across 2 generations. I reckon I've gone over 250 hours in The Witcher 3, I would think, 2 playthroughs combined. How about you, Bully?
Well, it's one of those ones I played through almost to the end on the PS4, never actually finished it, and then had designs on picking it back up and finishing it until I heard that there was a PS5 version coming out. So I put it off until that got released. I've put another probably 15 or 20 hours into it, and it's one I need to get back to. It's still sitting on the disc is still sitting up there ready to get slotted back in, and I'll have to jump into it at some stage and get cracking on the Death March mode to try and get the Platinum Trophy for it.
Well, that'll be 1 or 2 hours by tonight's metric, if nothing else. Ace, how are you with The Witcher 3, man?
Oh, this game, like most of the games on this list, is a 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely loved it. Amazing. And I'll bring it up with you guys if you guys have finished it.
Oh, yes.
I'm hearing there's like a lot of multiple I think we might have talked about this the other night, and I mentioned it to you, and you said, no, you got the good. But not to do any spoilers, my ending finished at me sitting alone in a hut, and sort of I was getting surrounded. I was going to die, and I going back and researching it, it was like, no, you had to do everything right. And I did this one mission. I didn't finish this one mission due to the choices. correctly, and that sort of led me down this path of maybe not getting the best ending. But this game was just from top to bottom, start to finish, just absolutely amazing. And yeah, I don't know. There might have been many sleepless nights played on this.
And I'll tell you, well, the other one that does suck you in is Gwent, because I could sit there and play that for hour after hour after hour and forget about the entirety of the rest of the game.
I never got sucked into Gwent.
Didn't get you, mate.
There was too much going on. Like, I just love the combat. I love the magic. I love, like, just going out in those hunt contracts. Like, everything about it. Like, it was just, there was so much happening. Like, it was like, oh, yeah, do I want to go and sit on these cars, or do I want to go and kill some griffin thing with a lion head? I don't know. Like,
and bring its severed head back.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
On the back of what was his
Roach.
name? Roach.
No, you lop off its head, you come back into town and holding it up, and then you go and hit the inn and have some ale and play a bit of cards.
A couple of hands of Gwent, please.
Perfect. What about entry 2 this week, Bully?
Fallout 3, and this is another one of these ones which I think we might be a common theme with a few of the games, is the side quests that suck you in. And with Fallout and Fallout 3, but all the games in the Fallout series since Bethesda have been doing them, you don't even need to be on a side quest. You can just be wandering around the world and find a vault, and you could spend an hour or two in a vault just wandering around. What's the background of this? What experiment were they doing in this vault? What sort of strange things could you find in there? And then same thing again. You can just fritter away hour after hour, just exploring. And that was probably one of the biggest things is seeing something on the map over in the distance and going, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do the main quest or even a side quest. So I'm just going to go and check out what's over there. And same thing, it can just lead you down a path of, I'll check that thing out, and now I've done that. There's something else on the map that's piqued my interest, and I'll go and have a look at that. And you can just spend hour after hour exploring and never getting tired with it.
Yeah, I was forever. I'll just clear this one building, and then I'll turn. The next build. Then the next one. Yeah, I lost many an hour to this. Ace, yourself?
Oh, mate, 10 out of 10 again. Great game. Like the amount of times, and like you guys are saying, and I'm just going to reiterate it, that I'll be like, cool, I finished that mission. All right, all I'm going to do is going to go quickly over there, collect this side mission thing, and then I'm turning it off. And next thing I know, 10:30, it's like 12:30. Damn it! What the hell just happened? Absolutely, I've loved all the Fallout games from number 1, number 2. Haven't touched 76, so if you guys have given it a crack,
steer clear.
No one has.
Okay, cool. Thought so. So I'll wait for the next iteration.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think Fallout 3 might be Liam Neeson's only video game voice appearance.
I don't know if it's his only one, but it's funny you mentioned it because I did fire it up last weekend and started up a new game on the Xbox Game Pass. It's obviously available in there, being a Bethesda game. I did fire it up and completely forgot that he voiced your father in it. And as you're sort of going through that tutorial setup section in your own vault, and he's talking to you, and it just twig straight away, and you jump back into it.
Yeah, thing of beauty. What about number 3? I haven't spent many time with this at all.
What?
Well, in a similar vein, I suppose it's made by the same developers, Skyrim, and it's very similar vein. Is that, and it's probably a lot in terms of exploration. It's almost easier to explore than Fallout because Fallout's got that barren wasteland, and yes, it has markers and things that you can see on the map or off in the distance to go and find. But Skyrim, especially when it was released, was just such a beautiful game that once you got out into the open world and started looking around, you could see things off in the distance, and it wasn't so much that it was, oh, does that pique my interest? It just go, oh, well, that looks amazing. I just want to see it up close, and you'd go off and explore. And I think the 3 or 4 playthroughs I've done of Skyrim have all started the same way. You get to that first sort of the first town, and then once you're there, where you're supposed to go left, I go right, but then keep going right until you're way off the track of where you should be, and you've unlocked half the map before you've even done your first mission. So.
Yep. Perfect. I love it. I love the way that you come out at the start. Well, as you say, mate, once you get to that first town, but you can see, and I can't remember the name of them. What are they? The priests or whatever up on the high mountain. You can see that mountain from damn near the whole map, and it's just calling to you the whole time.
Yeah. I'll probably mispronounce it, but it's High Hargrotha or something along those
No,
lines.
yeah.
Perfect. There you go. And you, Ace, how much time you put into the old Skyrim?
Oh man, I think I had 4 characters all over 80 hours plus. So
Nice.
it was something that I sunk a lot of time into. And I think for me, and I think it's one of the next games. This is actually the next game. This was the one that sort of set the staple on go out there and do what you want. Explore. Here's the game. Here's the path, but do what you want. And very similar to you, one time I built an orc build and I went left and I went to find the orc town and I just become a master armorer. One time I made a mage warrior and similar. I went straight. And one time I built a warrior and I went right and you could just do anything. Like fuck, pardon my language, but the amount of hours I put into this game, it was ridiculous, and I never regretted a single minute. And like you say, you see something off in the distance, you go and explore it, and you enjoy it, and every moment of it is amazing.
And just one more time, Ace, how's your Thum sound? Excellent work. All right, entrant 4 this week, Bully.
Entrant 4, as Ace alluded to there, Zelda. We've gone with Breath of the Wild because you two boys haven't played the newest one, but same thing. It's just you see something off in the distance, you get distracted, you wander around, and you find 50 other things before you get back to what you're actually supposed to be doing, and that's the magic of it. And it's probably even more so with Zelda because you don't have all these markers on your map to be able to go to. You have to make your own marks on the map, and it leads to that discovery even more that you have to actually physically go there and see what you're looking at, as opposed to seeing on a map, oh, that's a cave or that's a dungeon or that's a town or whatever it is. You can see it on the map. Whereas here you sort of go, I don't know what that is. There's a mountain. Does that look like a cave there? I'm not sure. I'll go and have a look. No, it's not a cave, but there's a town behind it. And, endless hours I've spent in both the games just wandering around the map and totally oblivious to the main quest and the side quests and all the rest of it. I think in Tears of the Kingdom, I think I'm almost at the end of the game, but keep getting distracted. Same thing. I've almost put the main quest to the side and thought, no, I haven't seen enough of the world. I want to keep going and seeing what else is out there. So in terms of losing hours, it's phenomenal. Time flies when you are playing it.
Yeah, definitely. I put over 100 hours into this one. I don't remember my full play time, and it was over 100 though. But I reckon maybe only 2 of those were spent waiting for the rain to pass so I could climb up. How about you, Ace?
Doesn't get any better in the new one.
Absolutely love this game. I remember when I first loaded this up and I loaded in, bang, and I was like, all right, where am I supposed to go? I was waiting for that marker.
Yeah.
And there wasn't sort of one never appeared. And I was sort of like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I Googled it, and like the first review was like, Zelda is one of those games where it's up to you. And I was like, okay. And then the concept at first almost blew me back because we hadn't experienced that. And then once I sort of got used to that concept, it's just like it's hard to go back and look at games nowadays where they're so linear. And then you're like, well, I enjoyed the fact that this was make your own adventure, go where you want to go. And the only thing that's going to hold you back is, like you said, you haven't got enough stamina to climb that mountain. So now you're going, okay, well, I need to get enough stamina, so I need to go get X, Y, and now I've got enough, and now I can go and climb it. And what's up here? Oh, look at this, I got this and that, and now I'm going to glide down over to there because there's some shiny thing. So this game was another 10 out of 10 so far. Great list.
Fantastic. I love it. What about entrant number 5, Bully?
Entrant number 5, well, we'll go with Elden Ring. And in terms of losing hours, that's just because you keep dying against the same boss all the time and wanting to have another crack at it. I'm not sure I sort of lost myself in the exploration as such, as much as with the other games. But that was more on me because I'd go, I see something over there, I want to explore it, but I don't want to go too far off the beaten path because I don't want to be so far away from a respawn point where I'm going to have to try and find my way back there to get my experience back. And it was just me being timid and scared that I was worried about dying more than, not wanting to explore the world. But absolutely amazing game. It certainly does help if you do the tutorial at the start. It does give you a good grounding. And then once you're out of that first dungeon, it's very similar to Zelda in a lot of respects. there's no quest markers. It doesn't tell you where to go. You have to actually read and listen to the characters that you're talking to and read things and work out where you're going yourself to a large degree. And the same thing, you can walk out of that first sort of tutorial area and turn left, right, or go straight ahead and,
get killed by the giant dude on the
killed by the giant dude on the thing. But it's funny from that start, and it's probably fairly similar to Zelda in that respect, is you could have 10 people that have played this game, and depending on which direction they went out of that first initial tutorial area could tell you and have completely different experiences to the other 9 people that they're talking to of how the game developed, where they went, what they did, and all that sort of stuff, which I just think makes for a really compelling game design that you can then experience it your way and then come back and speak to other people and go, oh, did you say this? No, I didn't go that way. Oh, but I went this way. And, learn from others rather than, just bringing up a map and saying, no, you need to go here.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I spent so many hours just exploring this, not even fighting anyone, just, horse darting around people just to see more of the countryside. It was phenomenal. Ace, how far did you go with Elden Ring, mate?
None?
God, you know me, boys. Come on.
0?
When I'm getting punished for playing a video game, I'm not in. And this is one of those games where you get punished. And the experience, like the death stuff. I played Dark Souls. I played a bit of it, and then I was like, I got it. At the start, I was like, this is great. And then I died, and I was like, oh, you got to go back and get all your stuff. And I was like, if you don't get all your stuff and you die before you go back and get all your stuff, then you die again and you lose all the previous stuff. I was like, well, that doesn't seem fair. So, but look, I know a lot of everyone has sort of raved about this, and maybe my hand fast twitch finger action isn't quick enough. So yes, it's been a no for me, and I've put in 0.
Fair enough then. I suggest we move on to entrance 6.
Entrance 6, we have.
I'm just going to say.
Yeah, good on you. Yep.
Any spoilers? And then I was like, what's happened? I thought I was that. I was like, no, that's after. And then I was just randomly rode into a town.
7, we've got Call of Duty Warzone 2.0, and I guess we could sort of couple this in with the multiplayer as well to a degree. And for me, I haven't put a lot of time into Warzone, but certainly in the multiplayer, it's one of those things where it's like golf for me. You have one good game and that gets you back in, or you play one good shot in a round of golf and that's enough to get you back next time. And it's very similar with Call of Duty for me, is that you have one good round, you might rack up a heap of kills. That's enough to get you back into the next game, despite the fact you're getting obliterated left, right, and centre for the next 3 games. So that's sort of my take on it. And 100%, you get into that rhythm of, oh well, if I just do this, or if I want to get that map that I like, so I'll keep playing it. You just keep ticking over, and the hours just wind away.
Troy was talking you up since the last. I think we did. I don't know if we did a live play, but Troy was talking you up the other day. Said you're dominating in shipment and stuff like that.
Well, there's one video on the channel. You have to go back and watch that. 70 kills. I don't know.
That sounds like an average game for me.
I got to say, Call of Duty is probably my number 1 for just one more game then, Ben. Just one more game. I think it's definitely been my number 1 for about 20 years. What about you, Ace? I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, you know me, and every time I come on here, I love to spruik it. And look, with the DMZ, and they say it's a 25-minute game, but it really runs for about 40. And the amount of times me and the lads have been like, 40 minutes, it's 10. We can squeeze one more in, and you're 10:40. Just one more, and then it's 11:50. And it's a work day. All right, I should go to bed. I'll have one more because someone will talk you into it because they're a little late shift. But yeah, I love it. I love it, and I love it. So that's 3.
Perfect. All right then. Entrant 8, The Last of Us, Bully.
The Last of Us Part 1. I think that obviously a lot more of a linear game than what we've discussed here, but it's the story that just keeps you trudging along. Oh, I just want to see what happens next, and oh no, what's happened to Joel? What's happened to Ellie? How are they going to get out of this? What's happening there? And it's the story that pushes you along, and we certainly saw that. When they released the HBO show at the start of the year, it was one of those things that I can sort of see where they did it week by week, but by the same token, once it had its hooks into you in the first episode, you really just wanted them to push through, and so I could just sit there and watch the entire season in one lot and just binge on it. And it's exactly the same with the game. Is that it's got just enough of the gameplay and the set piece gameplay elements that it's interesting and without drawing it out for too long, and then you're back into the story again, and the story drags you along, and you get involved in it and invested in the characters, and it's not just the Ellie and Joel that you get invested in. It's a lot of the side characters and the people you meet, and their background and some of the stories as well. So that's the biggest change for this one, but no less does it keep you interested and keep those hours ticking away.
Yeah, definitely, mate. You're right. The way they balanced the action scenes, then the narrative scenes, it was just perfectly balanced, kept moving. If it was a book, you'd call it a page turner. I don't know. We don't have a video game term for a page turner, do we? We probably need one, and this one should earn it. Ace, your thoughts on The Last of Us?
Oh, another 10 out of 10 for me. This game was the perfect hybrid of a drama TV series that you're watching with like John Wick experiences, I don't know what you would call it, like a Yellowstone mixed with John Wick, almost like something that just holds you in every bit, and then every chapter finishes, and then you're like, and then something happens, and you're like, well, I just want to, like exactly what you said before, Bully. Let me just see what happens here, and next thing you know, you spend another 45 minutes, an hour, and you're on to the next bit, and you just continue. So I've loved it. This one probably more so than number 2, but yeah.
Perfect. On to entrant 9.
Entrant number 9, we've got Uncharted 4. So obviously the same studio that did Last of Us Part 1, just a different style of game, and it's almost a little bit twisted the other way in my point of view, is that the gameplay and the set pieces, the actual gameplay was a lot of what kept me going, because it was so interesting and compelling, and the different environments that you were dropped in, and yes, it had the story that went with it, but to me, that was secondary to the gameplay. So flipped around with The Last of Us, it was a really interesting story for each of the games, and 4 especially. Although, again, this is probably one that dragged on a little bit too long, in my opinion. Could have been tightened up a little, but the actual gameplay itself is always what drags me in and keeps me going. And I think trying to think, Uncharted 4, I played through that one about 5 or 6 times, and if we had Unky on here, he'd probably put me to shame with that one, and would have done it 2 or 3 more times than that. But I thoroughly love it, and obviously it says a lot to the game that I've gone back and played it that many times, when you know what the story is, you know how it's going to play out, but you still want to go back and play it because it's such a good game to play.
It is phenomenal, and I think 4 was definitely the best. Are you an Uncharted player, Ace?
Yeah, 100%. Loved them, all of them. And I don't mean to be controversial, but number 1 was probably the best one for me, because I don't know, it was such a fresh take on like an action adventure sort of style game. But in saying that, each iteration was great, and it all felt like an action movie that you were sort of a part of, and you had those decisions that you sort of had to input. And but like number 1 was probably the best. I know that they built on them, but just on a pure perspective, like the first one was so great, and yeah, they added to it, but they probably didn't add it to enough to make me say that number 4 was any better than the first.
Fair enough, mate. Fair criticism, but can you criticize entrant 10, Bully?
Mass Effect 2. Well, if we were going to go with number 3, you might have been able to criticise it just on the ending. But similar again to the last couple of games, a bit more. It did have some, I guess you could say that they were open worldish elements. You had the towns, and I can't remember off the top of my head what they were called, but the larger towns or cities that you could go into, that you could sort of move around a bit more freely, although not entirely open world. So it was a lot more linear in terms of game design, much like the last couple, but it still had that compelling element of, different quests, side quests, and similar to the first couple that we talked about in Fallout and Skyrim, where you'd sort of go, okay, well, I half an hour before I need to go to bed, I'll just do one side quest, and then one side quest leads into another one that leads into another one, and same thing before you know it. And as compelling as a story as have we seen, especially when you put all 3 of them together, and whether time's done it any justice, I know number 3 when it was released, there was a lot of criticism about the end story, and to the point where BioWare went back and effectively rewrote it and redid it. But I was quite happy with how it played out, and amongst all 3 of the games, I'm always one for if the developers got a story to tell, and whether you like the story or not, or like the outcome of it or not, that's the story they've chosen to tell, and it is what it is. I don't think we need to go back and rewrite history.
What about Game of Thrones?
Never watched it.
Oh, wow.
Personally, I love the Mass Effect series, and it was always, for me, I was always like, oh, I'll just get back to the Citadel and then I'll push on. And that's where I lost all my time wandering around the Citadel. What about you, Ace? Were you a Mass Effectian?
Yeah, massive. Love, probably out of the 3 of them, this was the best of the lot. Number 1 was a great take and sort of what they let you do, and I felt like they built on this in every aspect. And then I was the same as you, Bully, and Troy. Number 3's ending didn't really bother me. It was what it was. But this was probably, as much as you can go into, you take a game with a great IP and then you develop it more and you add a little bit more. This was a little bit more action based, which made it feel even better. So I love number 2, and then number 3 built on in that sense. And if you want to say the story was no good, cool. You probably get the Sook Award as well. But yeah, another great game. 10 out of 10.
All right then, fellas, we have to answer the question of the evening. Which of those 10 games made 10 hours feel most like one? Which one sunk the most time out, do you reckon, fellas? Bully?
Well, I think you know where I'm going, so we might bounce over to you 2 first.
All right, Ace, come on, mate. Where are you sitting?
Look, yeah, it's tough, but it's a toss-up realistically for me between Skyrim and Breath of the Wild, and I'm going to go with Skyrim because they kind of did it first.
I hear, man. For me, it'd be Elden Ring. However, I know I'm not going to get the support from the panel, so I'll just tuck my favourite aside. And yeah, I could definitely give Skyrim the win here. I think I have no idea. I've put a lot of hours into Skyrim, and it did always get me in just this fashion. Oh, what time is it? How about you, Bully?
Yeah, well, you need Unky back because he would have given you the win for Elden Ring there. But yeah, look, for me, it's probably a toss-up between. I think The Witcher 3 for me is a polished version of Skyrim. In a lot of respects of what I would hope that the next Elder Scrolls game, not Elden Ring, the next Elder Scrolls game would be. But certainly for setting a foundation of what an open world could be, and the ability to just lose yourself in everything apart from what you should have been doing in a main quest and a main story. I think I'd probably give it to Skyrim as well.
All right, then. We have unanimous consent. Skyrim. A winner is you. For episode 74 of the Gaming Enforcement Agency, this brings us to segment 4. And Bully, I have to ask you, what's been happening in that there YouTube chat this evening?
Well, we probably caught a few people out, so there's not as busy in the chat as usual, but we do have Eric Tate in there, who did mention when we were talking about sports games earlier on that AEW Fight Forever, so that was a new wrestling game that came out, I think about 6 or 8 weeks ago. He said he's playing that, really enjoying it. Jess has jumped in there and said, welcome back to G.E.A. So thank you very much for that. Dr. Sponk, I'm not sure I know about this one, but his comment is, it's interesting how you have to turn your PlayStation to private mode to play Diablo. I don't know whether that's an in-joke you've got there, Ace, or...
they're really struggling with my internet connection at the moment, so I'm not receiving any game requests.
Or is that similar to when Troy and I caught Unky out? We were both playing on the PlayStation. Unky's jumped on, and we've sent him an invite to play a game. He jumped out of that, and next thing you know, he's popping up live on Xbox and playing on the Xbox. So clearly didn't want to play with us that night.
Look, I married my wife officially, but I didn't realise prior to that I'd married Sponk. And therefore, at any time I was to be at Sponk's beckoning call. And so once I got Diablo 4, because he was away at the time, didn't realise that was going to upset his DMZ time as much. And now he's back, and I'm stuck in the thresholds of Diablo 4. I haven't been able to get back to him on DMZ because I'm lacking an internet connection.
Well, as we can see tonight, mate, you've been dropping out constantly for the past few hours, so it's totally understandable.
This is all hot spotted.
And Diablo 4 is not a persistent online game. So
fully.
now we'll just go to SPT, who jumped in, which is Tigaro, one of our regulars in there, just welcoming us back for hopefully an ongoing run now. We won't have to have a bit of a hiatus or a rest period.
Fingers crossed. Thank you for welcoming us back there, Tigaro. Good to have you back.
But that is it for the audience interrogation, however you want a formulation.
Well, I guess depends how much you want their answers. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Bully, excellent work this evening, mate.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully I've beaten Final Fantasy by then.
Perfect. And Ace, thank you for filling in for the lackluster Unky Dunky this evening, mate.
Well, I heard you wanted a little bit of muscle on the show, so obviously you called me in.
Perfect. All right, fellas, we're off duty. Woo. And for the first time in a couple of months, I can say thank you for watching us here on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Gaming Enforcement Agency. But of course, what else can you do with Geek Aloud? Like it, subscribe it. You'll never miss it. Oh, that was luck. Hey, that's something.
Oh!
Old Uncle Donkey. Donkey.